Hey, my friends, welcome to the Dallas Daily Show coming at you today. We are talking about archaeology, the History Channel, and your story. Let's get into the conversation. So recently, this past year, it was kind of the summer into the fall. It was about a 6 month ordeal. One of our neighbors, not far from us, the city street team had come by and they were doing a little digging in their front yard, and they came across a chip, a piece of old pottery from a Native American settlement, or it became an archaeology site. And then all of a sudden the Archaeological Society came in and they dug up 2/3 of the whole front yard on this person as they were trying to excavate and dig and find all of these things. And it literally tore up this person's front yard for, like I said, the better part of 6+ months and 8 months or something, before finally they thought, okay. And here's what was funny was, some days the archaeology team would be there and then we wouldn't see them for 3 more weeks, and then they'd be back and then we wouldn't see them for 3 more weeks. And if I had been the homeowner and if that had been my land, I use that, if that had been my property, I probably would have been like, hey, instead of you guys coming back every 3 weeks, why don't you work here for 3 weeks straight, dig out all the stuff you need to dig out, find it all, and then take it back and test it and fill my yard back up. Because again, they sat through most of the summer and the fall with big old holes in a third or more of their yard. So wouldn't have been my choice. However, I was driving past there one day and I saw him. I saw one of the archaeologists holding up, one of the people from the Archaeology Society holding up, and it was just this little, probably 2 inch or 3 inch little chip of pottery, it looked like. And they were kind of examining it, and they had their tables, and I saw them dusting off a few pieces. And I slowed down one day and just kind of looked at what they were doing. And it took me back to, do you remember the History Channel back in the day, before it was all ice road truckers and people yelling about their car redesigns, and when it was actually history documentaries? Do we remember these times when the History Channel actually talked about history? They would do these digs and they would show us archaeology, and there'd be this big thing on Egypt, and there'd be this thing on, Pompeii or whatever, and we got to see all these cool documentaries. And they would tell these stories of these people that lived during that time, and it would be all from finding this one little pottery chip. And they'd be like, we can surmise from this pottery chip that this was this type of society, and when Joe went out into the field and he found this, and they'd create this entire kind of fictionalized, or maybe the better term is dramatized, version of the history of this thing. And it was all based on a little chip, a little piece of pottery, a little part of the whole. Now, sometimes they would find a mass grave, or sometimes they would find a mass encampment or something like that. But a lot of times they created an entire story based on a small little piece. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, I think we're 60 something episodes in now. If you've been listening to this, you already know where I'm going. And if you don't, allow me to just go ahead and go there for you. I looked at this archaeological dig, and then I began to think about the anthropological fiction that we used to watch and enjoy, and like I would get totally immersed in the History Channel. And it was like this small little chip, this small little piece of pottery, and they created this whole hour-long documentary from it and told all of these stories of these people that once existed, and they're making up 92% of it, right? And I began to think about you and me. And I began to think about how often, when we're doing, the self work, and when we're working on the history, and we're doing the inner child stuff, and we're going back and trying to fix old paradigms and recreate the old scripts, what we do is we find this one little piece, this one little shard of a memory. And from it, we create an entire story that may or may not be factually accurate. It may be slightly dramatized. It may be fictionalized. And what can occur is we can create an entire story that puts us on a trajectory of a present reality that is subpar from what we ultimately want. What might be possible for us if we just found the chips and the pieces and we didn't create a whole dramatized story around it? Now, I know this is a deep, heavy conversation if I go here too fully. I am not belittling your trauma. I'm definitely not belittling the pain that you've experienced, the scars you've experienced, the things that you've had happen to you. But sometimes a little shard is just a little shard, and it means you had a little pottery. Sometimes we don't have to build an entire story around it, which may or may not contain actual memories, which may be a piece of this part of our life and a piece of this part of our life and a piece of that situation with our sibling and a piece of that situation with our dad, or, oh, that one comment that my mom made to me that one time. And then all of a sudden we start piecing together all of these broken pieces and we build a story that may or may not serve who we want to become. Instead, it may keep us trapped in an anthropological point of view of a time gone by. And my friend, I don't want you to get locked into times gone by and old stories. I want you to write a new story. The shards are nice because they tell us who we were, but it's nothing compared to who you're going to become. And so instead of focusing on the past so much, and again, I'm not belittling whatever therapy or counseling work or child work you're doing, or family services work, integration work, I'm not belittling any of that. What I'm saying is I don't want you to get caught in the past to the detriment of who you're becoming in the future. So sometimes we just need to let the past be the past, because you and I are too busy creating a future reality that we ultimately want to be, the idealized self that we want to actualize into the world. So when you hear me always say this phrase, say hello to future you, the past doesn't have much hold on that person anymore. Sure, you never want to forget it. Sure, you want to heal from it. But some of the best things we can do in healing the past is walking into the future of who we're supposed to be. So no positive play call today. No like, hey, go download this. Just simply sit with this thought. Am I creating stories around my past that are not serving the future me I want to be? That's all I got for you today, my friends. Go out there, have a championship day.
Thanks for listening to my dad's podcast. For more tools, go to dallasdailyshow.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.